It's playoff time. Big stakes, bigger promotions. Every day of hockey's playoffs, DraftKings will have $20,000 in total prizes up for grabs. The best part, it's free to get your shot at these daily cash prizes. DraftKings will be offering 2 free-to-play pools every day of the NHL playoffs, offering players a free shot at $20,000 in total prizes.
Dang, I could use 20,000 right now. That sounds so nice right now. DraftKings free-to-play pools are easy to enter. Just download the DraftKings app, go to pools, and choose from a wide variety of free contests for an opportunity to win cash prizes. Cold hard cash, people. Money, cash money. All you have to do is answer a handful of questions around what you think is going to happen during that day's hockey games and track your results throughout the evening. DraftKings is safe, secure, and reliable, so you can deposit and withdraw your money at your convenience.
So when you go out for steak at a strip club, you can make it rain too. Download the top-rated DraftKings app now and use promo code THPN when you sign up to get your free shot at $20,000 in total prizes. That's a lot of strip club steak every day of the hockey playoffs. That's right. Head to DraftKings Pools page to get your shot at huge cash prizes. That's promo code THPN for a limited time only at DraftKings. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
I was walking through the halls of a Minnesota rink when along came a Wild fan who started talking smack to me. He said, I bet you never liked the Blues until they won a cup. And so I calmly turned to him and said, hey man, listen up. I admit it's pretty great to win Lord Stanley's prize, but listen, I've been waiting for this moment my whole life. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Heartbreak's all I knew, man. That team from old St. Lou, man. Got a cup in here, 52, man. Give me a Let's Go Blues. I know Federico, Turnbull, Gilmore, Brown, Channel, Bothwell, Babich, Maher, Mullen, Millen, Sutter, Pedersen, Pavsey, Curry, Zuckle, Uthart, Hunter, Schofield, Reeves, Ramage, Kia, Dunlop, Wickenheiser, Crombie, Benning, Raglan, Ewan, Micheletti, Ramage, Romney, Kozlowski, Evans, Cavallini. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Yes, sir, I'm a Blues fan. Heartbreak's all I knew, man. That team from old St. Lou, man. Got a cup in here, 52, man. Give me a Let's Go Blues.
And now, the starting lineup for your Bluenotes podcast. Tom Franklin.
And Wags is at a wedding in North Carolina, but we do have fan reacts. Hello,
yes,
welcome to Bluenotes, located on the best city on the Mississippi, the best in the Midwest. We've got that Stanley Cup power, too sweet to be sour. And if you're still clueless, we are talking about St. Louis. This is your home for Blues playoff hockey coverage on the Hockey Podcast Network for however long it'll last. I'm Tom Franklin, joined as always by my enthusiastic comrade, Blues fan reacts, Mason. How's it going, bud?
It's doing wonderful. We're in the playoffs. Woo-hoo! It's finally time.
Playoffs.
You know, I wasn't super thrilled about the Bruins Capitals game yesterday. Hopefully today's games will maybe make that better. And hopefully the Blues can come out strong, get a solid game 1 win. If you guys remember, beginning of the season, we already won a game 1 against Colorado, then got lost like 8-0 the very next game.
We don't talk
about that. We won 4-1. Very first game of the season. These guys are beatable. They are.
They are beatable, and the Blues have proven that they are beatable. The Blues have a 3-5 record against Colorado this year, so hope springs eternal, especially when you compare their record to Vegas, which we'll talk about that later and talk about why we're so happy we're facing Colorado and not Vegas, because we might actually win one against Colorado.
Yeah.
Be interesting.
It's gonna be great.
Absolutely. So we'll get into some playoff talk here. We have Griffin Youngs sitting in the sidelines. He is from the Tell It Avs It Is podcast on THPN, and we will get a preview from the Avs perspective from him as well as, and he can also hear about our worries about David Perron being on the COVID protocol list. And
already, we just started, Tom. We just started.
I know. It's almost always never easy with the Blues. There always has to be some additional hurdle that the Blues have to clear besides, the actual game at hand.
Why not just get all the COVIDs out of the way? Why not just get everybody infected throughout the season and then now the playoffs no, we have to wait till the playoffs. Haven't we had 3 people on the COVID list in the last 2 games of the year?
Well, and then
ridiculous.
Jake Wallman and Mackenzie McEachern are still on the COVID list. So
Nathan Walker is too.
Nathan Walker's on the list as well?
Yep, Nathan Walker's there too.
That must have been a new. I didn't see that one, man.
Yep.
Well, John Hefner doesn't have COVID. He is checking in, saying hello, Reactor, talking to you. So welcome to the show, Mr. Hefner. And we'll get into that. Also, shout out to our $25 Center Ice Brewery beer run winner, Center Ice Brewery, of course. We ended up doing a contest in the final month of the season. We asked you to pick how many points the Blues would end up with, and this was right at the ass crack of a bad.
Yeah.
So
me and Tom were very pessimistic. We were not happy.
We were the bottom 2 picks on this, and I'm happy to report we missed badly on that. By I think at least 8 points for us. Shout out to Vegas Blues fan who also took part in that contest, I believe, but he was not the winner. The winner had to go a little further out west for that. It is the man who you just can't avoid on St. Louis Blues Facebook or Twitter anymore. It is Guy, the Hawaii Blues fan.
He is international, people.
He is internationally known. That is right. And he is also a St. Louis beer contest winner. He ended up picking exactly 63 points, which is where the Blues ended up. He needed the Blues to win. He needed the Blues to win all 3 games, the final 3 games of the year against LA and then the 2 against Minnesota. And guess what? They did it. So miracles do happen. He should already have his gift certificate already. And he is going to be, we let him in the contest, by the way. We initially, just as a disclaimer, we limited it to St. Louis area residents only, but he is going to be in St. Louis later this year. So we gave him an exception. We gave him a pass, if you will.
Of course.
Also, I'm glad he entered because I believe if 63 points would have been right in between 2 guesses, so that would have been a potential controversy. But regardless, Guy, the White Blues fan, he is going to get $25 to spend at Center Ice Brewery, whether it is beer, whether it is shirts. They have excellent shirts there as well.
Ooh.
And I
got to get me a shirt.
They really have good. I mean, they have the most creative can designs. I'm drinking their hard cider right now, which I'm a big cider fan. It's not their most creative, but they have others that are just phenomenal. Like their old arena cans and bottles are very creative, and they have shirts for those as well. So I want to say hello to our people that are watching right now on YouTube and Facebook. John Hefner, we already gave you some dab. Vegas Blues fan checking in. Jordan York checking in. How you doing, Jordan, today? And it looks like we have John and Jordan communicating each other in the chat, which is great. We love having our Blues fans interact with us on our episodes when we do them live every Sunday. Cheers go out to that. So without further ado, we have to tackle the elephant in the room. It is Griffin Youngs, and I just called Griffin Youngs an elephant. But he represents the elephant of hockey right now, and that is the Colorado Avalanche, the President's Trophy winning Colorado Avalanche. And Blues fans, we all know how great winning a President's Trophy is.
Do we though?
Do we? We won it once.
We have once, and that went wonderful.
That went great.
Who did we lose to?
It was San Jose in 7. San Jose in 7 way back in the day, and we're still not sore about that. Definitely not.
Nope,
We've totally moved on from that. Absolutely. And and I'm sure Colorado's going to break that, bad stigma with the President's Trophy. I'm sure there's going to be no problems at all. No, they're Blues are going to give them some problems, I predict. So let's go and bring him in. And I do not have our special intro. We've already had him on a couple times this year, and you can only intro a guy specially so many times before he just, pretty much just you just got to bring him on and say hello. Griffin Youngs joins us from Tell It Avs It Is. How's it going, Griffin?
I'm feeling good. Feeling pretty presidential, I must say.
Oh, God. All right. That's my cue.
With that President's Trophy, because we, as Avalanche fans, have no ill will towards the President's Trophy in our past. The last time the Avalanche won the President's Trophy was coincidentally also the last time the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup in the 2000-2001 season. So I am pretty happy with it.
And who did you beat en route to that?
I wonder.
Can you remind me?
Some team from the Mississippi River. I think
they're not important.
Their tourist attraction is a bent rod. I hear.
They're not. I don't think they're important anyway. But
yeah, Patrick Waugh did not treat the Blues very kindly that playoffs. I remember. I mean, there was like one game. I think the Blues put up like 50 against Patrick, and they only beat him once. It was just he was standing on his head. He's Patrick Waugh. He's the GOAT. So respect where it is due. But you mentioned you're happy to be here. I'm happy you're here. I'm happy we're talking to you and not the Vegas Nightly guys, as it was looking there for a while, because, well, between you and Vegas, you're the team that I think the Blues might actually have a snowball's chance in hell of beating in the first round. I say that because the Blues in the regular season had a 3-5 record against the Avs. They were outscored 26-21, but take away that 8-0 blowout game, then that's looking a little bit better. Compare that to Vegas. The Blues against Vegas, they had a 2-6 record this year. They were outscored 34-11. The Blues have no answer for Robin Lehner at all. Lehner owns us. So I personally feel glad that we're facing the Avs over the Vegas Golden Knights, as weird as it sounds. Did you hope to face the Blues in the first round instead of the Wild, or what was your preference?
My personal preference was to play the Blues in the first round, but I think I might be in the minority of Avs fans with that opinion. A lot of us wanted the Wild because we have owned the Wild pretty heavily this season, outside of like our final 2-game stretch back early last month where the Avalanche were just exhausted. But I've wanted the Blues for a little bit now, but it specifically had to do with I want Minnesota to play Vegas because Vegas matches up very poorly with them. So I wanted them to beat the crap out of each other for a little bit. But just purely from an Avalanche perspective, it's not that I think the Blues are easier. I actually want the Blues because it's a difficult enough series that they have to take it seriously. And also just, Minnesota just has a vibe right now of just being like a team of destiny. They just look like they're having a great time right now, except when they play the Blues. But
currently tied 1-1, 0-0 against 0-0 in Vegas, which is
they're being outshot. Wild are being outshot 32-20 right now.
Yeah, I've got that on. Just
Wild's gonna win. Wild are gonna win. Just for
I
that.
hope so.
Yeah,
that'd be amazing. But anyway,
that would be amazing.
With I was saying, the Wild just have that team of destiny feel right now. They look like they're having a great time, and I'd rather avoid that in the first round. Not that I'm afraid of them. We'd beat them if we played them in the first round, but just like, why take that chance? And the Blues, they're good. I respect them completely, but when you look at the Blues, technically have a losing record. So it's hard for me to make that leap in my mind that I would rather play the team that we finished like 3 points ahead of in the standings. So not that it's any disrespect to the Blues. It's really because I like the Blues and I think this is going to make for an entertaining series that I wanted to play them. I did not want to play Arizona. That made me want to retch thinking about. But yeah, I wanted to play the Blues for a little bit now.
We've got our own issues against Arizona, don't we? Mate?
Yeah. We hate them, and since they're moving to the Central with us, then hey, we can both hate on them a little bit together.
They're the nightmare that doesn't go away.
Yeah, well, if I'm an Avs fan, I'd rather play the Blues as well. Just because Wild. Just look at them in the standings; they have their really good games, and they have their really poor games. So the Blues are a significantly more well-rounded team, I feel like. So, you're right. The Blues are, lack of a better term, like your warm-up team for the next round. If you really think about it, because you saw the money puck odds, 15%. We have 15%. That is the highest odds I could find.
So you're saying there's a chance.
But hey, I will say this: if we beat you, you're never going to hear that. You're never going to hear the end of it. You won't.
I won't hear about it at all. I'm never coming back.
Wow. Well, we could be seeing the last moments of the Tell It As It Is podcast as we speak. Gee.
Wow. I might disappear for a little bit. I might change my name. But yeah.
What would you change it to? Griffin Youngs?
I don't know.
Reacts? What are you gonna do?
I'm not making that leap in my mind yet. But with those percentages, I think those are a little skewed just because the Avalanche are such an analytically favorable team. I mean, they lead the league in like goals for percentage, goals against percentage. They're at least, I think they're number 1 in goals against, which is pretty surprising when you think about it, but 3rd in goals for percentage. So their analytics are very skewed in that metric. I wouldn't go and say they're 88 to 12% favorites in this series because it's hockey and it's crazy. And like reading Dom Luszczyszyn's article in The Athletic, he said like these are the highest odds I have seen in the last decade and the highest since Pittsburgh took on Ottawa in 2013. So
no love.
The Avalanche are the favorites. They are heavy favorites.
Oh yeah.
But 88% like
that's a
sport like hockey and against a team with championship pedigree like the Blues, I can't go that far. I'd go maybe 75. Like I think I'd just, considering bounces and everything like that, and considering just the sport, 75 is still pretty high. But 88, I can't make that leap in my mind.
Well, another thing that you have to keep in mind too is the Blues have been really good. The last, 3 weeks has been the best hockey that we've seen all year. The reason why, our standings are so bad right now is because we just had an abysmal first 2/3 of the season. It was just brutal for us. So, that's, getting hot at the right time. It's a big factor when it comes to the playoffs. So, I mean, if you look at, all the whole season statistics, yeah, you're right. The Colorado Avalanche are a very, statistically favorable team, but you're also looking at the Blues from a whole season perspective too. And so that definitely shifts the odds a little bit against us in that favor. But I'd say a 70, maybe even a 70-30 is where I'd probably put the odds at. But yeah, nothing wonderful. Cause we all know, Blues are like probably bottom 3 worst teams of the playoffs right now. Like, okay, I'm a Blues fan and I can say that with confidence that we're one of the bottom 3 besides, the 2 Canadian teams that are in.
Well, it's just Blues are, and not only that, but the Blues are kind of a hard team to really pin down and say this is who they are because they play like they have a really good record, against like Minnesota, for instance. The Blues had a 6-2 record against Minnesota this year, and they outscored them 35-19. And the last 2 games of the season, it wasn't a contest. I mean, the Blues really took it to Minnesota, but yet, we had our struggles this year against Anaheim. And Los Angeles and Arizona for some reason owns us. It's been a weird season for the Blues. I think a lot of it's been self-inflicted this year because the talent's there. I mean, the talent's there, the championship pedigree's there, the team, minus, Petro and a few others. I mean, it's mostly the same team from, 2019. But it's just, they dealt with injuries, they dealt with confidence issues. Like there were times where I never thought the Blues were going to score again. There was a stretch in there where I was like, we are never ever going to get a goal again because there was no cohesion on offense. We were talking like I remember doing an episode, Mason, where we were talking about as Craig Berube lost this team. And were we talking about maybe is Craig Berube on the hot seat this offseason? I think he saved his job, down the stretch. And really, I think he's got Ryan O'Reilly to thank for that because it was really O'Reilly, when going down 2-0 against Colorado that, kind of threw a hissy fit on the bench. And then he scores a hat trick in the game and just kind of puts the team on his back. They needed that from him, and they needed that all season long. And it's just been a weird season. And I personally think, the Blues are playing well going into the playoffs. I would say I don't have really any concerns about their form. We can talk a little bit about, Perron being on the COVID list and Jake Wallman being on the COVID list. But what's your assessment of the Avs going into the playoffs here? Because, just from a distance, I know you guys have held McKinnon out, a couple of games. Rantanen's been hurt. It seems like you're dealing with some injuries, but yet you're still playing good hockey. So what's your assessment of the Avs form going into the playoffs?
The Avalanche have been very, very good coming into the playoffs. To win the President's Trophy down the stretch, they needed to be essentially perfect. Like I was talking in one of my episodes, second to last game to Vegas, the one we ended up losing. We had Dubnyk in net and we're missing Rantanen. Like I said, you can lose a maximum of one game if you want to win this division. And they did. They lost one game to the Sharks. They went the rest of the way, and they had to go 5-0 to win the President's Trophy down the stretch. They did. Vegas gave them no help. Minnesota gave them no help. They all won. The only difference was that final game against Vegas, where that was a playoff game, essentially. That was the biggest game of the season. The top line got shut down, essentially, but they still found a way to win. And those final 2 games against the Kings to clinch the President's Trophy were about as good as you can expect them to be. Grubauer is looking very good right now. He is essentially the reason we beat Vegas that day, and finishes his season with a shutout against the Kings. Like, this team is coming in very hot right now. They're on a sizable winning streak. They're essentially completely healthy now. Saad is going to be back for game 1. McKinnon said he's 100%. It was mainly just precautionary. Like, he was held out before the Vegas game. He played in the Vegas game and was held out after the Vegas game, just because why risk it at that point? So Dubnyk, our backup goalie, is going to be back. He's off of protocol. Grubauer, well, hopefully we don't have to see Dubnyk, but
I want to see Dubnyk.
I mean,
I would love to see that. That would be wonderful.
I know you would, but Grubauer he's back. I was worried about him for a little bit last week. Not anymore. He is 100% back, and he's playing some of his best hockey of the season right now. This team's healthy. I mean, like, Byram's going to be back as well. There's really not huge injuries outside of the ones that we knew were going to be lingering into the playoffs. This team is really healthy for one of the few times all season. Like, this is a team that's been healthy for maybe 30% of the season at most, maybe 40. But this team's healthy right now, and they are hot, and they are confident, and they are ready to play. And I think this is a team that can also ramp it up in the playoffs. I think McKinnon is the kind of guy that when the playoffs come around, there's a switch that flips in that guy's brain that takes him to another level. Because if you rewind time back to last year's playoffs, McKinnon only went 1 game without a point in the entire run.
Yeah.
I think this team is going to be very ready to go. And from what it sounds like for St. Louis, sounds like the dominoes are already starting to fall with some guys.
Yeah, a little bit. And it's
unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate. I mean, because, for one, David Perron has been, really a heart and soul guy for this team. And he's a guy, that it's interesting with him because he's getting older, and I believe he's got 1 year left on his contract.
2 years.
Yeah. But he's been talked about as a guy that, well, maybe they expose him to Seattle just because of the numbers game. And I'm like, keep him. No. Please, for the love of God, keep David Perron, which is funny because when in Perron's, first 10 years in St. Louis, I wasn't a big fan of him. I thought he took dumb penalties. He was very streaky. He seemed very petulant at times, had some maturity issues. But then he goes to Vegas, and then Vegas returns him to St. Louis, essentially just like a whole new hockey player. And he's been phenomenal down the stretch. So if he's going to be out for an extended period of time, the Blues are going to have some issues. And I think that's one thing why, and one reason why I still think the Avs win this series, and they might still win it in 5 or 6, just because you look at the Avs down the stretch. They won the President's Trophy, and they had to do some work to win that President's Trophy. I mean, they won it on the last game, essentially, and they did it without McKinnon. They did it without Rantanen at times, and you had all these stars that are going down to injuries. They didn't skip a beat. The Blues, on the other hand, we're looking at the prospect of losing Perron, and we're kind of like, oh God, just because you don't know who's going to step up. He and O'Reilly have that great third sense connection with each other. Now that's might be done for at least one round. It's a scary proposition, and not only that, but you mentioned Grubauer. Mason can kind of attest. We've been kind of up and down on Binnington this year, to say the least. It's not entirely his fault. I think the Blues scheme now, they give him too much to do, in goal. Like, they don't really help him out a lot of times on defense. The shape of the Blues defense has really changed kind of from 2019, where we've gone into more of a smaller puck moving mobile defense as opposed to having, the big uglies back there. And they try to go into this rush style. I think the defense was set up to be kind of like a rush style offense. And I think that was some of the problems the Blues were having this year, is that they had trouble getting the puck out of their own zone. So you can't have a rush when you can't get out of your own zone. So they kind of, as the season has gone on, they've kind of gone back to, their old, chip and chase kind of a style. And that's kind of worked for them. But that's going to be an area where I talked about, the Blues putting up 50 on Patrick Waugh the last time you guys won the President's Trophy and you guys still won. If you're putting up 30, 40 shots on Binnington, Mason, I'm not confident that they'll go beyond 5.
Yeah, no, definitely. You need to, because you got to keep in mind the people that we've lost this year. Gunnarson's out for the year. He did struggle to stay in the lineup for a little bit there, but he at the end of the day, he's a defenseman.
Yeah.
Oscar Sundqvist, one of your best defensive forwards, he's out. You're not going to see any of him.
No.
And then David Perron, who can back check. David Perron's not invisible in the defensive zone. We've seen him on the penalty kill a few times this year, so that's another player that you're just going to miss. You're going to watch the Colorado power play and you're going to see him pepper 5, 6, 7 shots on each power play. And Binnington's going to be sprawling all around. It's like, hey, little help here. So even if Jordan Binnington brings back that 2019 spirit, which I'm not convinced that he will, but even if he does, you're still going to get, 40 shots against pretty consistently if we don't tighten up and seriously tighten up like we did against Minnesota, in the last game, or Minnesota in the game before that. You have to get consistency out of your defense, or it doesn't matter how good Jordan Binnington is, you are going to lose 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 kind of thing. Those goals will stack up quick. It will swing the momentum and it will cause Jordan Binnington to make big mistakes. It's just flat out going to happen. I do have a question, though, Griffin. If you look at, so as a Blues fan, looking at the Blues, if I'm the Blues coach, I'm saying shut down the first line because, for a long time, Colorado's always been known as a one-line team. And that's not true, especially not this season. We've seen a very well-rounded team. But you look at the defense, you see that the defense of the Blues can shut down good lines. We've seen him shut down Vegas's top line. We've seen him shut down, Minnesota's top line. We've seen him shut down Kirill Kaprizov in the last 3 games that we've played against him. So I guess, is there any concern that maybe the rest of the roster can pick up the slack that maybe the first line just can't provide?
No, not at all. The depth can definitely provide. And I can point to the Vegas game as being a prime example of that, because Colorado's top line is capable of being shut down. There have been several occasions this season where they have been, and just look back last Monday at the Vegas game. McKinnon, Rantanen, and Landeskog, I would say, were bad in that game. They were completely shut down. You get goals from Andre Burakovsky, who's red hot right now. I think that's a name you guys are going to be very familiar with over the next little while.
Weird to look at. Yeah, I know. I already have a picture of him on my door, and I'm throwing darts at it. Yeah, I know. And then you've got JT Compher, who scored 40% of his goals in the final 2 games of the season. He scored the game winner against Vegas and a hat trick against the Kings the very next day, or in the very next game. There is no concern about the depth with this team. There might be some concerns with certain players. Nazem Kadri has been cold all season long. He's gotten 1 goal, I think, since March. And it was a big goal against the Sharks, but he's been ice cold, I believe. If I remember correctly, he has 10 goals on 11. The season. 11, that's right. Yeah, it's 11 now. And it's just, he's been struggling a lot, but you haven't really noticed results because of that, because a guy like Burakovsky around him has been very good. And this is going to be Brandon Saad's first game back in about 3 weeks. We'll see where he is, but the depth players just find ways to come through when the top guys can't. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare just finds a way to score a random goal every once in a while. Oh, we know.
Yeah. And out of nowhere, just you're not even looking at the screen. All of a sudden you hear that Bellemare scored. He's just a prime example. I think Tyson Jost down the stretch has turned into an outstanding two-way player for this team. And lest we not forget, Alex Newhook is probably going to be in the lineup for game one. He has been a godsend. I love this kid, Alex Newhook. He is going to be, at very least, the future second line center for this team behind McKinnon, and he can be an impact player as soon as this series. I mean, biggest game of his life last Monday against Vegas. I keep going back to this game. He puts up 2 points. He's in on both goals. He sets up the game winner. He does not flinch in the spotlight. He might be starting on the fourth line now that this team's healthy, but you keep going down the lineup, and it just keeps getting better. Top line, I would say, is one of the best in the league, but if that's not there, you've got Burakovsky, Kadri, and I believe it's going to be Donskoy for game one. Donskoy, he was cold for a little while, but in the last few games, he has gotten hot against the Kings, so he's broken out of that. The third line I love with Tyson Jost, Val Nichushkin, and Brandon Saad. I think that's one of the best third lines in the league, honestly. When Jost and Nichushkin, like, they might not put up a ton of goals in this series, but they are going to grind the Blues and make them very frustrated. These guys are very solid defensive forwards, and Brandon Saad can really bang in pucks in front of the net. And now you're looking at Alex Newhook on the fourth line, injecting some speed down there with Pierre-Edouard Bellemare and JT Compher, who I've had problems with most of the season, but on the fourth line and coming into the playoffs as hot as he is, no problem whatsoever. He's been outstanding, and the scratches, even if once guys start to go down, which they will, it's the playoff, people get hurt. There are guys who've had plenty of experience this season plugging into even as high as the second line this season. So I do not worry about the depth at all, even if the McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog line is just quiet at times, which might be for a game or two, but I think those guys are ready to go. And I haven't even mentioned the defense yet. I mean, I feel like I do this every time, but
you have to.
Defense is healthy. That's the scary thing. They've been unhealthy for the last little bit here. I can't really name a time where the defense has been 100% healthy this entire season, or at least I can't remember a time. We were missing Gerard for the last little bit. He came back for the final 2 games. Byram's been out for over a month. Makar missed some time back in early March. Like, now they're fully healthy. You've got Taze and Makar on a pairing together. That didn't work early in the season, but late in the season, one of the best in the league. You've got Gerard, who's just on that precipice of being elite. And we don't even know if Bo Byram's going to be in the lineup for game one, but
that's how deep your defense is Bo Byram would be your extra.
Yeah.
Your extra.
Yeah. In my opinion, I think that would just be because he hasn't played hockey in about a month, and he's 19. It might be a lot to ask him to throw him right in there for that first playoff game when he's probably just getting back on the practice ice for the first time in a little bit.
Yeah, well, there's discussion amongst the Blues of putting in Dakota Joshua for the playoffs.
You made that
We
up.
are so
I don't know who that
trained. Exactly. That is precisely our point. Joshua. We are grasping at straws right now.
We are literally talking about Dakota Joshua because of the injury problems the Blues had this year. And they had no choice but to open the Dakota Joshua door on the NHL, which, to be fair, he
has been good.
He's been a little bit of a fan favorite just because, like, he's not afraid. He, like, knocked Ryan Reeves on his ass one game, which automatically endeared him to Blues fans. He's been in, I think, 2 fights. Well, I guess 1 fight officially, but then he got a scrap in the final games. I say he's earned I think he's earned a roster spot. I mean, next year I think he deserves strong consideration to be our fourth line center. That's kind of how much he's endeared us. But yeah, he's still an unknown. I mean, he's played 12 games. He's not a scorer. He only has 1 goal and no assists this year, so it's not like he's going to light the lamp a lot. But it's like, yeah, we've had to rely on guys like him, guys like Nathan Walker, who is, as Mason informed me before we recorded, he's now on the COVID list as well, so you don't have to deal with Walker, Aussie Ranger, which is just awesome. The Blues are without Jake.
I've got a soft spot for Nathan Walker. He made a little stint back in Washington. I saw his first career goal. I've got a soft spot for Aussie.
That's right. You know what? And he's a guy that I feel has been unlucky in his career because it just feels like he got a chance last season for the Blues. He looked good, and then he just kind of he lost the numbers game essentially. Then I think he got hurt as well. He strikes me as a guy that's like, he's got the talent, and someday he's going to score 30 for a team, and everyone's going to be surprised, except for us, because we've watched Walker and know that's what he's indeed capable of. By the way, you mentioned Alex Newhook, talked a lot about him. I think you were actually on our podcast the week that he signed his entry level deal, and you were very excited about him. And Blues fans, this is a guy you probably should watch out for. I mean, you look at his stat line: 6 games, 3 assists. He is a +5, which, for a 20-year-old getting his first NHL look, I mean, plus minus is not the end all be all for stats, but it can kind of give you an indication of how well a guy is playing. +5 is pretty good in 6 games. But the thing that jumps out to me here, Griffin, is that he gets just under 14 minutes per game of ice time, which tells me that Colorado has a lot of faith in this kid. And I'm wondering, because we have Klim Kostin, who just finally made it over to the States. He won the Gagarin Cup with Avangard Omsk this year. And he played in 2 games, played very well. He's probably, I think at this point, Mason, he might be a third liner for us with injuries and just kind of how things are shaking out. But Kostin also got about 14 minutes of ice time in his 2 games. So this could be an interesting story here, Griffin, of these 2 young guys who have something to prove in the NHL. They might factor in pretty big this series.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex Newhook, when he got his first call up to the NHL, he was plugged right onto the second line with Kadri and Burakovsky. This is the lowest he's been in the lineup for his entire NHL career, and it's because of injuries for the most part that he was plugged up so high, but it says a lot about a kid making his NHL debut when you plug him into the top 6. And there were times, like we were up big on the Kings. We plugged Alex Newhook up on the top line with Landeskog and Rantanen. There's a lot of faith in this kid, and for good reason. I mean, obviously, he comes over from college hockey, finishes his season with Boston College, 16 points in 12 games. He's in a point per game in the World Juniors, and he's a point per game in the AHL, 9 points in 8 games. And he comes up, and you can see the impact that he has right away. I mean, the organization's known about him for a while. We drafted him back in 2019, the same year as Bo Byram. And there's been nothing that he's shown that says that he can't handle the NHL. And even if he doesn't make a big impact in this series, I can see him being a regular in this lineup, maybe even as high as the third line for the rest of the season, as soon as next season. Like, he's going to be a big part of this team very soon. I think it's great that I don't mind burning the entry level deal. I mean, we did that with Makar, and that's going to bite us a bit this offseason, but when you have a chance and you have a kid like Newhook who's proven himself to be better than a lot of the NHL regulars that you've acquired. I mean, we traded for Carl Soderberg at the deadline, and we're playing Newhook over him.
Yeah.
We spent assets on Soderberg. And
Former Blues prospect, by the way, Carl Soderberg.
Yeah. And
way back in the day, he got traded for Hannu Toivonen, which did not work out well.
Exactly.
But anyway,
I don't even know who that is.
I was hoping you guys did, but because I don't.
Boston goaltending prospect that this was during the time when the Blues, this was right after the year they had 7 goaltenders play for them. They were grasping at straws, trying to find a goalie of the future. Toivonen had promise, and then he came to St. Louis, and that promise got lost in customs. So
yeah.
But that's how most of our goaltending prospects are, for perfectly honest.
Yeah, that's true. Brent Johnson, excuse me. Anyway,
Chad Johnson.
Well, he wasn't really. He was a suspect.
Not a prospect, but he was still there.
He was a suspect. You know what? Let's go ahead and let's get into predictions here for this series. Before we head out here, and I know, Mason. We've dragged this as long as we could, but it's time to make some predictions. I think the way this is going to be a series, I feel, where the direction is going to be set in game 1.
Yes.
Because these are 2 hot teams right now. The Avs are 8-2 in their last 10. They won their last 5. The Blues have won their last 3 and are 6-1-3 in their last 10 games. So both are playing really good hockey. And whoever gets off on the right foot, I think that's fair for any playoff series, but I feel this series in particular, Are the Blues for real? Are the Avs for real? They're gonna one team's gonna need to answer that after game one, and then they might, ride out some momentum for a few games. I just think that team's gonna be the Avs coming off. I think the Avs are just playing probably the best hockey in the NHL right now. I don't think there's any other team that can really make that claim at the moment. One time it was Vegas, but they allowed Colorado to pass them up a little bit. I'm gonna be the optimistic Blues fan and say Avs in 6, which is optimism. Yeah, I mean,
that's optimistic.
I was going between Avs in 5 and Avs in 6. I don't think the Blues will embarrass themselves that bad to get dumped out in 5. But I see this as another year where the Avs and Blues may trade some games. It'll be 3 games to 1 Avs. The Blues will sneak a win in Colorado, give us some false hope, and then they lose at home.
As usual, like clockwork.
Because the Blues and home and home ice during the playoffs don't mix. I mean, we won
the series clinching game, then they will.
We won the Stanley Cup, after all, in 2019 with a losing record at home in the playoffs, which has never happened. So
it's literally never happened. It's just,
so
the only games at home that we won was Game 4 against Boston.
Yeah.
And then the 3 series clinching games.
Yes.
And then I think a few more. But that's it.
It was so bizarre. And that trend continues. That trend, I mean, even this season, that kind of continues. So I say Avs in 6. What do you got, Mason?
I got Avs in 5, if I'm perfectly honest. I think the Blues will get lucky. I think, keep in mind, I think at least 2 of those games are going to be down to the final 2 minutes of the game.
Good.
Two of those games, I think, the Avs will just barely squeak in, and they won't be convincing wins. But, that's 2 of them. I think the Blues do get 1. I think the Blues probably after a loss, as per usual, probably at Ball Arena. Probably. Binnington is going to play out of his mind. Ryan O'Reilly's going to say, fuck it, I'm not losing today, and then carry us and probably score 10 goals and win, At least 10 goals. Yes, Ryan O'Reilly will score at least 10 goals in one game. So that'll be one of them. I say we lose game 1. I say we lose game 2. I say we win game I say we win game 2, and then we lose 3 straight. So I'm going Avs in 5 there. But like I said, 2 of those games are going to be, at least 2 of those Avs wins are going to be close where it could have gone to either team. I think the Blues show up. I don't think they show up, to the Avs in 6 standard, I don't think.
Yeah, Stephen Glass believes it's not going to be goaltending that kills the Blues. It'll be the crazy defense the Blues play. And by crazy, that's another word for bad. So Avs in 6, Blues are a good road team, which I agree on. If I think it wouldn't shock me if the Blues got both of their wins on the road, in this series against the Avs. Although I feel Denver's like the one exception to the Blues rule. The Blues don't seem to fare very well in Denver, and especially Binnington. Binnington, I still have nightmares over how he played in Colorado, the last few games in Denver. He just got shelled, it seemed like at least 3 or 4 times the last 2 years. So that's going to be an issue. But now, Griffin, you're the
Avs. Wild going to overtime.
We've already capitulated and said the Avs are going to win this series in some way, shape, or form. So go ahead and drive the dagger and tell us why the Avs are going to win in 4.
All right. Well, I believe sweeps are very hard to come by in the NHL. I have never predicted a sweep in my life, and I'm not going to start now. When I broke down this series, I made my initial prediction in my bracket. I said Avs in 6 because I respect the Blues. I think they're a very good team. I broke it down a little further, and I looked at how these 2 teams matched up. Obviously, they played the first 2 games of the season. They split those, and they played in the entire month of April. The 2 games the Blues won in that month were when the Avalanche were without Grubauer and playing Devin Dubnyk. They were without Mikko Rantanen. They were without Jonas Donskoi. They were struggling pretty much and coming out of a COVID break where they were easy to throw off your momentum. And I give the Blues credit because all of the games in that month were very close. They were all 1-goal games or empty net games. So I have Avs in 5. That's my official prediction on air, even though my bracket says 6. I didn't fix it in time, but I have the Avalanche in 5 because I think this team is just coming in very hot right now. I feel like when you say a series in 5, it comes off as you think the series is going to be a blowout. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think there's going to be at least 3 1-goal games. I think at home, the Avalanche are going to take all 3 games. They're on a significant winning streak at home. Their last home loss was in overtime to Vegas back in March. They've completely run the table at home recently. And as you said, the Blues do not have a positive history coming to Colorado. Coming to St. Louis, I think there will be a split there. And when it comes down to game 5, and just, it was also the loss of Perron that really just stuck in my mind. Like that's a momentum killer, honestly. Like before this game guy, he just won. That's I mean, Perron's probably my favorite Blue, if I'm being honest. I've just always had a soft spot for Perron, so maybe I'm biased a little bit towards him, but
not O'Reilly.
No, I don't dislike him as much as other people in the Avalanche. I'm indifferent on O'Reilly. Very good hockey player, but just that's a momentum killer because you're already trying to climb uphill before the series even begins, and it's already against the team like the Avalanche. And just when you just look at these two teams head to head, where do the Blues have the advantage that can be exploited? I mean, it's the playoffs. Anything can happen. So I would not be surprised to see this series go 6. I think the Blues are experienced. They won the Stanley Cup, obviously, 2 years ago, and this is mainly the same team. Bounces, all that, yada, yada. I see a 5-game series for the Avalanche, but not one that has you guys with like head in your hands and the wrap-up episode. I think it'll be a respectable series. Like, I think the Blues are going to make them work for it, and 5 games should not be treated as a blowout because it won't be. These will be very good games, and I think it's going to be fun. I think it'll be a fun series. Going to get pretty ramped up pretty quickly, and I think this series is also going to dispel a lot of misconceptions about the Avalanche team, that they're soft and don't play defense, because Nathan MacKinnon got into a fight not that long ago defending one of his teammates.
He can be ornery. I've seen him chirp the refs and he's
chirped
not
the coach last year.
Helmet this season, like.
Yeah, he doesn't back down.
He's a raging bull.
I love MacKinnon.
He did throw his helmet. I remember that. That was funny.
I love MacKinnon. I love his game. I love the way he plays.
Yeah.
I thought going into this year he was the best player in hockey. I think McDavid may have taken that mantle back, with his incredible year this year. But yeah, I'm with you. I think it'll be an exciting series. We'll see some OT games. I mean,
definitely,
for a couple reasons.
Some OT games.
Vegas Blues fan thinks the Avs will probably win 2 games in overtime. But also, I think there might be some OT games because there's been 3 playoff games at the time of this recording and 3 overtimes.
Yeah, I mean, why not just follow
like 2019 over again? I mean, 2019 was full OT games.
Yeah, we might have an overtime game tomorrow for all we know. Just the way everything's going right now. You got the Caps and the Bruins, you got the Penguins and the Islanders. Now you got Minnesota and Vegas going over
tied at 0, which is just why is it tied at 0? Cam Talbot's not that good.
We pretty good actually, in the last games.
Yeah,
goodness, we just scored 7 on him the other night. So that was Kakinen. Never mind.
This is why I wanted Vegas to play Minnesota, because Minnesota gives Vegas everything they can handle. So whoever comes out of our series, they're going to get a beat up Vegas team, because I have Vegas winning, but in that series.
I think 90% of the hockey world has Vegas winning.
Minnesota's actually surprised, like kind of like dark horse underdog pick, hipster pick for a lot of people, but
they're not getting past Vegas.
And I was going to ask you to wrap up the conversation that leads us perfectly into it here. I believe it's fair to say Mason and I are both Wild fans, at least for the round 1 series, because we play Minnesota well and we do not play Vegas well. That's just a fact of life. And also, Vegas is annoying. We've been dealing with their fans, and they're I forgive them. They're learning how to play. They're learning how hockey works.
Give them a few years.
Give them
once Vegas.
Keep in mind, they are
over.
ex-Arizona fans, and so they are getting their first taste of victory in their entire long hockey miserable existences. So give them a little bit of a slide.
Shout out to Corey and Richie if you're listening to this show right now.
Shout out to AC Sports.
we know a few Arizona content creators, but we're Blues fans. I mean, if by some miracle we get through Colorado, we're definitely hoping for Minnesota because we have been able to. I mean, not just play well against Minnesota, but play. Like
manhandle them. Honestly, there have been just manhandle 9-1 at one point. Literally the last game of the season, we scored 7 straight.
Yeah, it was. After going down 3-0, which that's Blues hockey for you. There, always a roller coaster. But who are you hoping for in the second round? Do you want to beat the best in Vegas, or would you rather face the so-called team of destiny in Minnesota?
I've gone back and forth on it because the fan part of me wants Vegas. Like I feel like that's what this season has been building towards all season. I've said it a ton of times that I feel like nothing before the second round really mattered. And I'm not looking past the Blues. I'm fully focused on the Blues right now. But coming into the playoffs and months ago, it just feels like there is a crash course between Vegas and Colorado, that these are two of the best teams in the NHL, and to not see a 7-game series between them would be disheartening, because the Avalanche, in my opinion, are better than Vegas, and they would beat Vegas in a 7-game series. And I would love to prove that and have that be on the championship DVD when the Avalanche go on to win the cup. And
that'll be a great series, by the way.
Yeah. And I would want to play the Wild, obviously, because the Wild are an easier series for us. There's been times we've stomped the Wild this season, but I feel like I would just be robbed of, I think, what would be one of the best playoff series of a long time.
That's true.
Last season, we got robbed of it in the bubble with Dallas taking us both out. But
I would love to see a Colorado Vegas. I would love to see that.
Yeah. And I wouldn't mind Minnesota. I mean, when I'm watching right now, I have no rooting interest either way. I'll put it like that. If it happens to be Minnesota who takes advantage of that matchup against Vegas, and that's who we see in the second round, I will have no complaints. We have a huge beef with Minnesota, and it would be just as satisfying to take them down in the second round, because they're our big rival, if you want to call them that.
Interesting.
But to not see Vegas after all this time, and I feel like I would go into that series against Minnesota mad. You took that from us, so now we're gonna kick the shit out of you. So.
Well, I'm hoping for an exciting series here between the Blues and Avs. It'll need to be exciting because the puck drop started at 8:30 local time and 9:00 local time here in St. Louis. So we need excitement to stay awake. Thank you, NHL.
On the East Coast.
Coming up clutch once again.
Yes, I know.
Good job, NHL. Hey, I'm an hour behind you, so I mean, I'm perfectly okay with it.
Yeah, you're
okay with me that much.
Then our buddy,
I used to live on the West Coast, so I didn't I was like, oh, what a bunch of babies. And now that I'm literally 1 hour ahead, I'm like, oh yeah, this kind of sucks.
And then you're gonna move here eventually, and then you're gonna be as salty as the rest of us are over there.
Then I'm gonna turn into a soccer fan. I'll be a soccer fan then.
City SC starting in 2023. There we go. So, all right, Griffin. Well, best of luck. Not too much this series, and
not too much.
Before you go, where can we find you?
Well, you can find my show at Tell It Avs. It is wherever you get your hockey podcasts, just SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your shows. New episodes come out every Monday and Thursday. If you want to re-listen to this will be part of my episode coming out tomorrow, along with my private preview of this series and some of my predictions for the playoffs as a whole coming up. You can follow me personally at G Youngs NHL and follow the show at Tell It Avs It Is. I also work for fansided.com. I write articles occasionally. Now that my college semester is finishing up, I'll be writing articles a lot more. So if you want to keep up with those, you can follow me at G Youngs NHL. And yeah, guys, I'm looking forward to this series. This is the one I've wanted, like I mentioned earlier, and I think this is going to be entertaining. I don't think I'm going to be sitting here with my feet up at the end of every third period. I think these are going to be very good, entertaining hockey games. So
Yeah.
best of luck to you guys. I have very little ill will towards the Blues. There are teams I dislike. The Blues are not one of them. So when the Avalanche win this series in 5, know that I'll feel a little bit bad about it. Okay.
Well, and it's kind of interesting. Like, I know the Blues and Avs, I would say that's from our perspective, a little bit of a competitive rivalry, but I don't think there's really a ton of bad blood towards Colorado.
No.
I mean, we don't really have much.
No.
When Patrick Waugh was coaching the Avs, I mean, it seemed like, he always was a soundbite machine and he would try to rile us up. But lately, they're a good team. That's kind of what we feel like. So
yeah, I mean, maybe we can have that conversation again in a week. But
yeah, we'll see how we're feeling in a week.
We'll see what happens.
I mean, I one of us may have a drinking problem by this time next week, so we'll
at least one of us.
We'll see. Well, yeah, you're not legal yet, are you, Mason?
Who cares?
Coming soon, legal drinking for Mason. Alrighty, Griffin. Well, thanks a lot for being on the show.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you guys for having me.
All right, good luck. All right, Griffin Youngs, Tell It As It Is podcast. I even gave him the opening to say, hey, Avs in 4, why is it going to happen? And he's like, no, Avs in 5. So he's a nice guy.
He's got more faith in the Blues than we do. That's kind of sad.
Well, hey, I said Avs in 6. So I have a little more faith, but I don't know. Well, who knows? It's true. Blues hockey. It is, yes. Whoever really knows with the St. Louis Blues? You never do. You never do. And speaking of things that who knows, how about this rumor that Elliot Friedman dropped during the week, just casually mentioning that the Blues might be players for Jack Eichel. He noted that the Blues would have the pieces needed to get him. Now, when it comes to Jack Eichel, first of all, I had a chance to meet him at the 2020 All-Star Game Media Days. Nice guy, very determined, good personality. Like he's got everything you would want in a star player. I feel like, he doesn't make waves usually. And he's a talented guy. He plays hard every night. He's a perennial point per game guy. I don't know if I want him though.
I don't
know if it's tantalizing. He's a just one of the sexy talents that are in the NHL right now. Like he's probably in a tier below, like the McDavids and the McKinnons of the world, probably just a rung under that at this point. But I don't want him for the simple fact that it's going to cost a lot to get him.
Yeah.
You're going to be competing with just about every other NHL team because it's Jack Eichel. And of course, you want to at least get your name in the conversation. But I'm not comfortable losing a Robert Thomas and a Jordan Kyrou
and perhaps other people, because because it's going to cost a lot for us. And the way that the Blues are structured is we use every goddamn cent of the salary cap. We do not leave. We're the only team that's more confident. Yes, Toronto is about the only other team in the entire NHL that is more cap strapped than us. But we play up to and we're just not deep enough. If we get a Jack Eichel, we're getting rid of a lot of depth. We rely on our bottom 3. And I know we don't necessarily have a top line, but we rely on pretty much all of our lines pretty much equally, not, obviously the top 2 are the top 2 lines. We got our big 6, got our big 7 players actually on the front forward lines. But after that, we used to have the best 4th line in the league. I think that's slipping away from us, just because because of all the injuries, B, because, players are getting older, and especially next offseason, it's going to be tough because there's going to be a lot of names already gone to begin with. We're going to be playing AHL 3rd liners in a second here if we do Jack Eichel. So I don't think it's going to be worth it.
It's going to be, it would put us into a situation like Chicago is, where you have a lot of money thrown at 4 or 5 players, and then you have to fill the rest of your lineup with the Rockford Ice Hogs. That's just, it doesn't work long term. Vegas Blues fan agrees, not worth what we would have to give up to get him. Not only that, but he just had surgery on his neck. He just had He had a herniated disc in his neck that he just had surgery on, and you're ready to throw Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. And and for the Blues fans are saying, well, why don't we just trade him Zach Sanford and Vince Dunn? That's not how trades work. They're not going to do that, especially a lot of people think that Eichel will end up with the Rangers. Look at the Rangers and look what they've in their rebuild that they've done the past couple of years. They're loaded with young players. They just gave away Elias Anderson last year.
And they're still okay.
They're still fine. They got a second round for them. They're like, yeah, so what? Whatever. Elias Anderson could be a good NHL player, and I think he took some good steps this year in LA. But yeah, it's you're mortgaging a lot of your future when you don't have much of a future in the Blues farm system. The farm system's depleted. They have probably one of the five. They're probably one of the five worst. Yeah. Farm systems right now, just because you've had to sacrifice, and a part of it is because of success. I mean, the Blues have not drafted much in the top 15 in the last 10, 15 years, and that's a testament to success on the ice. But you lose out on a lot of prime talent, and talent that not just plays for your team, but then could be traded for other assets. Right. Instead, the Blues have done well in drafting, and they've traded their talent for assets. Dominic Bach, I don't think we're going to miss him. He's, by all accounts, I think he's already becoming a suspect in the Carolina system. So, he was a late first rounder. Klim Kostin, the future is still kind of up in the air with him, although I'm still encouraged by how he's looked so far. But it's just for one player. I don't think, and like I said, I don't think Eichel's in that Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Nathan McKinnon class. Not quite. He's just like a step below. And I just don't think it's going to be worth it. And not only that, but it's like, didn't we just rescue Ryan O'Reilly from Buffalo because, and part of the reason he wanted to get out of Buffalo was because he was second fiddle to Jack Eichel?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what we did. Yeah. Because Ryan O'Reilly had no future in Buffalo. He had flat out said, we rescued him is what we did. We rescued him.
Yeah.
So Jack Eichel, we can't keep rescuing Buffalo. We can't keep rescuing Buffalo players. All right, that's not. We're not like a safe haven for them. Okay, let's get that straight real quick.
I feel that's a card you can play once.
In
like every 10 or 15 years. But if you try to do it too quickly, it's and it just the neck injury just scares me because as Mason, when you're dealing with spinal problems, that can really drag you down and just be absolute hell. Like
this pillow is the only reason I can sit down. It's the only reason I can sit down for this long.
Well, you literally just asked me, we need to wrap up here pretty soon because you're in agony. So
I got 30 minutes. Yeah, I got 30 minutes left and I can't. Yeah.
All right. Well, luckily, we are in the second round of our Bare-Knuckle Blues bracket, and we're going to get to that right now, and we're going to plow through that right now just to get it done and out of the way. And, of course, to do that, I have to put this up, and the second round of the Bare-Knuckle Blues bracket is here. You have made your selections during the week. They mostly matched up with ours last week, but with some exceptions. And let's go ahead and head to that bracket right now. I need to put it up on the screen for our video listeners here. And we have narrowed the list down from 32 to 16, meaning we have 8 matches to get through here. If you are looking at the screen right now, you can see at least 3 of those matchups here. We have Vladimir Tarasenko versus Nathan Walker, Braden Shen versus Klim Kostin, Dakota Joshua versus Carl Gunnarsson, David Perron versus Alex Steen, assuming he's healthy. Of course, we assume all these players are healthy. Vince Dunn versus Sammy Blais, Justin Falk versus Kyle Clifford, and Nico Mikkola against Robert Bortuzzo, and finally Torrey Krug against Jordan Binnington. Binnington winning the goalie battle. There was one exception in our fan polls this week. Otherwise, you guys were pretty much right along with us. You picked Oscar Sundquist to beat David Perron in the fight, but it was really close. I think it was like one vote separated that. So I thought that was kind of an interesting result here. We can kind of talk about that as we get to that particular matchup. But let's go ahead and get into our first matchup here today. We have Vladimir Tarasenko taking on Walker Aussie Ranger, Nathan Walker. Tail of the tape here. Tarasenko, 3 NHL fights. He has a 3-0 hockey fights record. He has 388 hits and 531 NHL games. He's 6 foot, 225 pounds. He takes on Walker, who has 1 NHL fight. He got beat up by Andrew Shaw. But he did have 23 fights in the minors and juniors, so he's got moxie. He averages almost 2 hits per game, 18 hits and 10 NHL games. But he's 5'9", 186 pounds. I would give, just for the size difference alone, I would give this one to Tarasenko.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you there. Well, I mean, first off, he's 3-0 in the NHL. NHL fights and minor league fights, very different ball game kind of thing.
True.
So I am definitely in the route of, Tarasenko absolutely moves on. And not only that, Tarasenko's just a hitting machine too. I mean, he's got moxie, especially with his shoulder. He did have an injured shoulder. He's still hitting out there. He hasn't let up. He can still fight. And, let's see. That's a 3-inch difference, too. 3-inch difference, and that's nearly 40-pound difference. Sorry, Walker. You're going to get wiped on by Vladimir Tarasenko. I think it's fair to say.
I think that's very safe to say there as well. And, by the way, a quick scoring update here. The Minnesota Wild have won in overtime. So the first blow goes to the Minnesota Wild, which that deserves a horn.
Yeah. Oh, goodness.
You got to love it. So there we go. Wild are up 1-0 on the seemingly unbeatable Vegas Golden Knights. Unbeatable if you're at least a Blues fan anyway. All right, so back to the bracket here. Our next matchup here, Braden Shen versus Klim Kostin, Klim Shady. And tail of the tape here, Braden Shen has 28 NHL fights, which still just blows my mind. You don't think that with Braden, but he's ornery. 14-14 record, averages over 2 hits per game, over 1,500 and over 700 games. He's taking on, and he's 6'1", 200 pounds. Versus Klim Kostin, who had 1 preseason fight, hasn't fought yet in the regular season. He has a 4-0 record in the AHL. He is a hit machine, and he's 6'3", 212 pounds, so he's got the size advantage. Look, Braden Shen is as tough as they come. He might be my favorite Blue at this point. I go back and forth on it. I've got a jersey of his, but against Klim Shady, I think Klim would just, I think he would just outmuscle Braden Shen.
Yeah, definitely. No, listen, Braden Shen has obviously got a lot of snarl in him. He's got so much experience. But honestly, Klim, 6'3", he's got 12 pounds over Braden Shen. And I think Klim Kostin, if he were to have 10 NHL fights, he'd win at least 8 of them.
I would agree.
So I know that Shen's got a lot of experience, but Klim Kostin, I got to go with him. I have to. 28 is a lot of experience in a fight.
It really is.
He's getting older. Braden Shen is getting older. He's probably losing some of that, fighting spirit in him. I think Klim Kostin has got it just based on, youth, based on size, and based on record. 4-0 in the AHL, which is pretty good, because a lot of players in the AHL, that's where a lot of the grinders and enforcers go. So, yeah. I got Klim over this one.
Which, by the way, in our next round sets up an all-Russian battle, Vladimir Tarasenko versus Klim Kostin.
There you go.
So there we go. Now we know who will perestroika the hardest. All right. Next matchup, we have Dakota Joshua taking on Carl Gunnarsson. And this is another match.
Do we even need to go over it? Just like, let's just,
we know Carl Gunnarsson is made out of glass. And Dakila is willing to run over Ryan Reeves. He'll probably run over your mother as well. And going up against Carl Gunnarsson, no contest. No contest. Dakila wins, and it will not be pretty.
No.
The show will be the show will probably be rated TV 14, just for that match alone. Not
for sure.
Absolutely. Next matchup, we have David Perron taking on Alex Steen. Of course, again, we assume all players are healthy here. Perron, 2 NHL fights. He has a 1-0-1 record. He drew against Bobby Ryan. He averages about 1.2 hits per game, over 1,100 hits and over 900 games. 6 foot, 200 pounds. By the way, fans, you guys thought it should be Sundqvist here, so that's kind of interesting. And I don't necessarily, I can see that. I don't. We were kind of torn on that one last week, if I recall. In fact,
I had Sundqvist winning that one. You had Perron, I had Sundqvist.
We did a poll on that.
It doesn't matter.
Like the initial poll said Perron. So, and I also don't think it's going to matter because he's going to take on Alex Steen, who has a 1-1 NHL record. Not a big hitter, 6 foot, 211 pounds, but in a fight between an Henri French Canadian and an old warhorse, I have a hard time. I have a hard time going against the old warhorse here.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you there.
Not only that, but I know Luke Whitbin is watching and listening right now, and he is like an Alex Steen super fan, and he'll probably tell us to stop using his music in our podcast if we said Perron. So we're gonna go with Steen to preserve the rights to his music. So there we go.
There we go.
Next matchup, we have Vince Dunn taking on Sammy Blais. This one could be an interesting one. 2 NHL fights, 1-1 record for Vince Dunn. 3 fights in the AHL, 4 in the juniors. Not a big hitter, 163 hits in 267 games, 6 foot, 203 pounds. But we know Dunn can be pissy for every now and then, and he's not afraid of going after an opponent. He asked Drake Kajula about that. He's taking on Sammy Blais. Exactly. No NHL fights for Blais. 1 in the AHL, 1 in the Q. But Sammy Blais lives for hitting people. He averages over 3 hits per game, 365 hits in 118 games. He's also got the height advantage at 6'2", 205. Weight's about the same. So
I'm going with Dunn. Personally, I'm going with Dunn just because Dunn knows how to fight. We've seen him, beat up Drake and Jula twice. We've seen him fight in the AHL. That is like when we heard that Vince Dunn was going to be on the Blues NHL roster 3 years ago, the first thing we thought of, isn't he the guy who got in a fight in the juniors in literally the Zamboni entrance?
Exactly.
So, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, Blais might have the size advantage, but even then, 205 versus 203, that's not a big difference. But with Dunn, because it's more compact, you've got more punch. You've got more punch per frame, I guess you could say. Right. So just pretty much for that reason, I'm going Dunn.
And Derek also believes Blais, hits don't equal fights, which is true. And I think you made that point as well when we were setting up the bracket itself. I'll go with that. I'll go with Vince Dunn. He's got that kind of a honey badger moxie about him whenever
for sure
he gets in a mood, and if he's in a mood, he's kind of hard to put down. I mean, and then as you said, Blais can hit. He doesn't have the track record for fights, so for that, I guess for the experience, we'll go with on that one. Next fight, this one's kind of an interesting one here. Justin Falk versus Kyle Clifford. Justin Falk beat Colton Parayko in the first round, which I think some might consider an upset. Kyle Clifford beat Mackenzie McEachern, which many would consider not an upset.
Not an upset. That's a Blues versus Avs series right there.
Exactly. So we got an interesting tale of the tape here. So Falk's been in 7 NHL fights. He has a 3-0-4 record. He has a 4-fight draw streak. He averages 1.6 hits per game, over 1,100 hits in his career, nearly 700 games. 6 foot 217. He's taking on Kyle Clifford, the man who has 96 NHL fights. And when you have that many fights, I don't feel records matter. No. Over 1,500 hits in just over 700 games. So he averages a little over 2 hits per game. 6'2", 211 pounds. Look, Justin Falk is a tough character. He is as tough as they come. He's not afraid. He would not be afraid of Kyle Clifford in this fight, but I feel Clifford has an extra gear in him when it comes to physical violence, and at least he did. I think he still does.
Yeah.
And
Kyle Clifford has fought Ryan Reeves 5 times.
Exactly.
So sorry, Justin. I mean, that's a respectable 3-0-4. Justin Falk knows how to scrap, and as we go deeper into this bracket, you'll find a lot of these guys will know how to scrap.
Yes.
But this is when the decisions start getting hard, where the guys who know how to fight, they're not easy. This is not like a Carl Gunnarsson versus Sammy Blade matchup anymore. This is a, Falk who knows how to fight versus Clifford who knows how to fight really well. Exactly. So just pretty much for that reason alone, Kyle Clifford, I think it's got to be better. It'll be close. I think if you made them fight 5 times, it would be 3-2 Clifford, if I'm perfectly honest.
And you know what? I think that would just, just for pure entertainment value alone, those would be fun fights.
Yeah.
Neither one's backing down from the other.
No way.
Not at all. So we'll give Clifford the edge. So that I feel comfortable saying that. Next one is Nico Mikkola versus Robert Bortuzzo. The youngster Mikkola has 1 NHL fight. He beat up Maxime Comtois this year. 48 hits, 33 games, about a hit and a half per game. Tall, 6'4", 185 pounds, but he's giving up about 30 pounds to Robert Bortuzzo, who has 29 NHL fights, 15, 11, and 4. He has about 1.3 hits per game, but he's also 6'4", 216 pounds. Look, I love Nico Mikkola.
Me too.
He's one of the autograph pucks that I've gotten from the mystery pucks this year that are now on top of my whiteboard. But it's Robert Bortuzzo. And Robert Bortuzzo is part of the inspiration for this whole bracket because, again, the winner gets to beat up Zach Sanford in practice.
Yeah, and that's going to be fuel for Robert Bortuzzo. He's like, I got to do this now. I got to go. So that gives him a slight edge to begin with, even if they were even. But, Nico Mikkola, like I said, 6'4", 185, that's a stick.
Yeah.
He's a stick. Maybe, if he pulls a Jordan Kyrou in this offseason and perhaps the next and he bulks up, maybe that's a closer competition. As of right now, 29 fights, dude.
Yeah.
Rob Bortuzzo's got 29. This isn't really a contest.
And I'm starting to see what Derek is seeing here. I feel this tournament is just going to come down to Bortz and Clifford, which it very well could. Dakota Joshua is still alive. Klasten's still alive. And then we got to pick our final matchup here, which is Torrey Krug versus Jordan Binnington. Krug has 12 NHL fights, but he has a 4-5-3 record. 5'9", 186 pounds. The guy is tiny, and he has less than a hit per game, taking on Jordan Binnington, who has 2 AHL fights. He wanted to fight the entire San Jose Sharks roster a while ago. 6'1", 174 pounds. Now, should we make a disclaimer here? Are we saying Binnington's still in his goalie gear or no?
No, I don't think so. I think he takes the leg pads off.
Okay, so we're saying no pads. This is just like hockey jersey and maybe like some pants,
Yeah. I say Binnington gets to keep the chest protector just so that he can get a little bit more weight on that 174-pound stick of a stature.
Yeah, and I've seen him in the locker room. He is a twig. Mm-hmm. He is very slight, but as we all know, Binnington's. He's very ornery. And Krug kind of has Honey Badger energy a little bit, with those 12 fights. He'll, I'll still go Binnington.
You would go Binnington. I'd go Krug. I'm going Krug just because that's a big pound difference, and I think Torrey Krug's got snarl.
Okay, John Hefner, Derek, Vegas Blues fan, if you're still with us, listening and watching, Krug or Binnington? Because I at first I thought Binnington had he's got a special kind of crazy about him. Where I don't think he'd back down, but just because you show you want to fight an entire team Like, what would happen if he actually did? Like in San Jose. I mean, would he still? I mean, would he have backed down eventually? Derek says Krug. John says Krug. Vegas Blues fan who feels we should not have picked Steen. By the way, but I think Steen's a warhorse. He hasn't chimed in yet, but you know what? The eyes have it. I'm gonna say Torrey Krug wins.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the fence about it, and they I asked for that quick poll just because I needed to nudge over it. Both are very emotional players, as Derek points out, but it's just you hit it on the head by pointing out that how thin Binnington is. It's just like he's got the heart, but he just does not have the physical.
Doesn't have the stature.
And also, if he went up, think of this: we're probably saving his life here because he would go up against Portugal next round. Yeah, and that would not be a
that would not go well. That's not going well for either of them, especially not.
I mean, just think of the sound of a twig snapping. That would be pretty much define that fight. So, Vegas being a Blues fan thinks we should have picked Binnington, but it's the size. I mean, and it's weird saying that because he's going up against 5'9", 186-pound Torrey Krug, who's not exactly a gladiator, but. That and just I think they match each other on emotions. It's just I think Krug would I think Binnington would get hurt. So that just flat out. So Krug wins. So that sets up our quarterfinals next week. Actually take it back. Semifinals next week.
Semifinals next week.
It would be quarterfinal. No, it would be quarterfinals because there's still 4 matches.
Oh, there's 2 more. Yes. Okay. Yeah, you're right.
So we have Vladimir Tarasenko versus Klim Kostin, the Battle of Russia. We have Dakota Joshua versus Alex Steen. We have Vince Dunn versus Kyle Clifford. And then we have Robert Bortuzzo versus Torrey Krug, which I will say, just looking at the rest of the field, the one surprise I would probably say, in this entire tournament that's still alive would be Torrey Krug. Yeah. Because you don't think of Torrey Krug as a knockout, drag out guy, but he had the advantage of some good matchups. Mm-hmm. So and then also I think Steen got a little lucky as well.
A little bit, yeah.
And to the fans' point, if it was Sundqvist versus Steen, would you have gone Sundqvist?
Probably, actually.
I probably would have too. But
oh well,
tough decisions. 2020, and I wear glasses for a reason. So, so that's gonna do it for this episode of Blue Notes. Any final thoughts, Mason?
Nope, don't think so. Just looking forward to game 1. It is going to be an ass kicking, but it's going to be a fun ass kicking.
It's going to be, and it'll keep us up when it's 11:30 at night, and they're just getting into the third room. So
it's true.
Yeah, good times to be had for sure. So that's going to do it for us here at Blue Notes. I want to thank you for listening and watching, because without you, there is no me. Well, there is no Wags. He's at a wedding in North Carolina this week, and there would be no Mason Blues Fan Reacts, and of course, no Hockey Podcast Network. I'm Tom Franklin, reminding you to not be a chump and...
Oh, baby! The Blues are still alive!
And also play to the whistle.
A reminder that you can follow Blue Notes on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Blue Notes Pod. I'm the voice of the Blues, Tom Calhoun. Jeremy Boyer, play us out!
You're listening to the Hockey Podcast Network, your home for hockey talk covering every team in the NHL. New episodes every Monday. Download at thehockeypodcastnetwork.com or wherever you get your podcasts from. Oh, and the Wild won, and our former captain turned the puck over for Vegas.